Being a single father is tough, but I always did my best to take care of my son. He was my world, my only priority. I thought I had everything under control, until something happened that still chills me to my core. Something I can't explain, something I can't forget. Even now, years later, the memory still haunts me. I see it in my dreams. I feel it in the silence of the night. And worst of all, I see it in my son's eyes, in the way he sometimes stares off into space as if remembering something he doesn't fully understand. It all started one night when my son woke me up, shaking me urgently. I groggily looked at him, confused, but the fear in his eyes pulled me to full alertness. His voice was barely a whisper when he spoke. "Dad, there's a man in my room." Those words sent an uneasy shiver down my spine, but I forced myself to stay calm. I'd heard this before: nightmares, sleep paralysis, an overactive imagination. I sighed, rubbed my eyes, and got up. As I followed him to his room, I glanced at the clock. 3:12 a.m. The so-called witching hour. I turned on the light and searched everywhere, under the bed, inside the closet, even outside the window. Nothing. No footprints, no signs of forced entry. Just the stillness of the night and my son's wide, fearful eyes. I reassured him that it was just a bad dream and stayed with him until he fell asleep. The next night, the same thing happened. I was shaken awake by my son, but this time, he looked even more terrified. His hands trembled as he gripped my arm. His voice was hoarse, desperate. He was standing in the corner, smiling at me. Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. It wasn't just fear in his voice, it was certainty. He wasn't just scared, he was convinced that what he saw was real. I checked again. Nothing. The window was locked, the door undisturbed. I even shone a flashlight outside, searching the yard, but all I saw were the quiet shadows of trees swaying in the night breeze. By the third night, my son refused to sleep in his room. He begged me not to make him go back, gripping my shirt like his life depended on it. His eyes were wild, his face pale. "Dad, please, he's going to take me. He's waiting." I tried to comfort him, but I was exhausted and frustrated. I wanted to believe him, I really did, but what else could I do? There was nothing there. Nothing, but still, something gnawed at the back of my mind, something primal that I couldn't shake. The fourth night was when everything changed. That night, I was too exhausted to even make it to my bed. I passed out on the couch while watching TV, the faint glow of the screen flickering in the dark. Then, something woke me up. Not a sound. Not movement. A smell. It was sickly sweet, thick in the air, almost chemical-like. It made my stomach twist in discomfort. Disoriented, I sat up, rubbing my eyes. The smell was getting stronger. My chest tightened with unease. Something was wrong. I followed the scent down the hall, my heart hammering as I approached my son's room. The door was slightly ajar, the dim glow of his nightlight spilling into the hallway. The moment I stepped closer, the scent became overwhelming, almost suffocating. And then, I saw him. A tall, thin man stood over my son's bed, his face barely illuminated by the soft glow of the nightlight. He was hunched over my child, pressing something to his face, a rag. My breath caught in my throat. My body locked up. I wanted to scream, to lunge, to tear him away, but for a split second, I was frozen in pure terror. Then, he turned his head and looked at me. His face. I will never forget his face. His skin was pale, almost ghostly, stretched tight over his skull. His eyes were wide, dark voids that seemed too big for his face. But the worst part was his smile. It stretched unnaturally wide, almost like it had been carved into his face. He grinned at me, as if he was delighted to be caught. And then he spoke. "Shoo, you'll wake the baby. I just got him to sleep." That was it. That was the moment I snapped out of my fear. I lunged at him, shoving him away from my son. He staggered back, but he was fast. He shoved me aside with inhuman strength and bolted out the door. I scrambled to my feet and chased after him. He was already at the front door when I caught up, yanking it open. But I tackled him before he could escape, pinning him to the ground with my knee on his back. He thrashed violently, trying to wriggle free. Even with his face pressed into the dirt, he still smiled. Even as I screamed at him, demanding who he was, why he was there, what he wanted, he just grinned. By the time the police arrived, I was barely holding on to him. He was laughing under his breath, his body twitching with excitement, as if he was having the time of his life. When they searched my son's room, what they found made my stomach drop. Binoculars. Rubber gloves. A rag soaked in chemicals. That smell, it was a sedative. He had been pressing it to my son's face, trying to knock him out completely. Then came the final blow. When they showed my son a mugshot of the man, he barely glanced at it before whispering, "That's him." He had been watching my son for 3 nights. Hiding. Waiting. Planning. I still wonder what would have happened if I hadn't woken up that night. How close had he come to taking my son away? To stealing him from me forever? The man was sentenced to decades in prison, but that doesn't bring me peace. I still wake up in the middle of the night, my body drenched in sweat, feeling like something is watching me. I check the windows, the doors, the closet. I don't sleep easily anymore. Because now I know that the monsters our children see in the dark might be real. And they might be smiling. Trust your instincts. Protect your loved ones. Stay safe.